Monday, September 15th, Jimmy Kimmel looked into the camera and made a comment about Charlie Kirk's assassination that would trigger a week-long corporate civil war and truly expose how late-night TV hosts are simply puppets to parrot messages across America. Speaking about the murder just days earlier, Kimmel suggested the killer was one of them, meaning Trump supporters. The MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, he said during his monologue. This was exactly the kind of inflammatory political commentary that Kimmel had built his late-night brand around since 2016, regularly crossing lines from comedy into what many viewed as political activism. And his firing and return just truly exposed how corrupt the entire entertainment industry really is. But he's still his own man with his own views, working for a private company. Many would agree he's entitled to push the boundaries if he wants to take the risk. Comedy is more subjective than almost anything, and you can always switch off a TV channel. This time around, however, the risk was too big, and it would be the TV channel that would switch off Kimmel. What happened next are some really difficult questions that cut right across the political spectrum. By the Wednesday after Kimmel's show, FCC Chairman Brendan Carr showed up on the podcaster Benny Johnson's show and called the comments the sickest conduct possible. Then came what sounded less like criticism and more like a threat.
I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct and take action on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead.
Carr wasn't done. He then suggested that ABC's broadcast license was a risk.
What people don't understand is that the broadcasters, and you've gotten this right, and they have a license granted by us at the FCC, and that comes with it an obligation to operate in the public interest. And we can get into some ways that we've been trying to reinvigorate the public interest and some changes that we've seen. But frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way.
He then straight up said they weren't going to run the show anymore until it was sorted out.
We are going to preempt. We are not going to run Kimmel anymore until you straighten this out, because we are running the possibility of fines or license revocation from the FCC.
ABC soon fell in line with what the FCC was calling for. Within hours of Carr's threats, Nexode Media Group, which owns 32 ABC affiliate stations, announced it would no longer air Kimmel's show. The announcement said that Jimmy Kimmel Live will be preempted indefinitely. And then the dominoes started falling when Sinclair Broadcast Group quickly jumped on board, pulling Kimmel from the ABC affiliates and even going further, announcing they would air a special tribute to Charlie Kirk in Kimmel's time slot on Friday nights. Trump, who happened to be on a state visit to the UK, wasted no time celebrating the news on Truth Social, saying great news for America. The ratings challenged Jimmy Kimmel's show is cancelled. Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done. Kimmel has zero talent and worse ratings than even Colbert if that's possible. He also set his sights on the remaining late night hosts. That leaves Jimmy Fallon and Seth, two total losers on fake news NBC. Their ratings are also horrible, do it NBC. At a joint press conference with the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer the next day, Trump doubled down when asked about the massive elephant in the room here, which is of course the matter of free speech, the First Amendment, the very thing that MAGA supporters championed. He told reporters Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk.
The backlash was as divided and intense as you'd imagine. For those who view late night TV as increasingly political in a way that backs the liberal elites, this was a huge win, especially for such insensitive comments that he made. Finally, the guy who'd been virtue signaling for all the wrong reasons was now getting some karma. But for others, even those on the right, there were some concerns about free speech. Then Obama entered the ring, highlighting the irony that the political right who often campaigned ferociously on cancel culture switched off a broadcaster over an insult. Other talk show hosts like Jon Stewart and Jimmy Fallon leaned into the story to make their own jokes about Trump and the FCC's stance. Some pointed out it's less about this singular event, but more about the precedent it sets. As Joe Rogan said in his podcast with Taylor Kitsch,
"Oh my God, you're crazy. You're crazy for supporting this, because this will be used on you. You don't think that the fucking globalist lizard people who run the world are sitting here going, great, what do we got, 3 years? We'll wait this out. We'll wait this out. Yeah. Let them say the government should be involved in censoring people's speech."
People also poured up the list of celebrities that have been cancelled for not saying the mainstream narrative for the last few years, pointing out that censorship goes both ways, with even a clip of Kimmel celebrating Fox firing Tucker Carlson in 2023. Rogan picked up on this too and said that comedy should just be that, and that Kimmel was trying to make a joke just badly in the situation. But then the backlash against Disney's decision began to build and go public. The Writers Guild of America organized protests outside Disney's Burbank studios, joined by the Directors Guild and Screen Actors Guild. Hundreds of writers, actors, and production staff showed up with signs reading "Disney stop bowing to a dictator." Hollywood talent began threatening to walk away from Disney projects entirely. The creator of Lost, which ran on ABC, said he couldn't in good conscience work for a company that imposed Kimmel's suspension. Tatiana Maslany, star of Disney's Plus She-Hulk Attorney at Law, posted on an Instagram story urging followers to cancel your Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN subscriptions. Then there was a coordinated boycott campaign with hashtags like Cancel Disney and Boycott ABC trending across social media. Even people like NSYNC were sharing screenshots of their cancelled Disney Plus subscriptions. And within just 48 hours, because of this decision, Disney stock had dropped by $5 billion in market value. Then came the first shocking, albeit predictable U-turn. By Monday, September 22nd, Disney basically threw in the towel and announced that Jimmy Kimmel Live would return to ABC on Tuesday. But here's the thing, this whole situation had exposed how bad Disney's woke culture had really gotten, as Disney was in an impossible position. They were basically stuck between a rock and a hard place, and it exposed a massive contradiction in how they do business. Today's video is sponsored by UGREEN. You see, when I make these videos, I need a great setup for my productivity, but oftentimes it's so distracting and annoying to have messy cables everywhere, especially when you're traveling and need to charge multiple devices at once, which is why I want to tell you about UGREEN. The new UGREEN Nexode Retractable series is designed for people who want convenience, speed, and a clean, clutter-free setup. Each charger has a built-in retractable USB-C cable that coils neatly into its compact body. That means you don't have to deal with no tangles, no wasted space, and just have reliable, ultra-fast charging that you can take anywhere with ease. Whether you're commuting on a business trip or traveling long distances, these chargers deliver serious power. The Nexode power bank packs 20,000 mAh with 165 watts fast charging, enough to charge 3 devices at once, including a MacBook Pro from 0 to 54% in just 30 minutes, all whilst charging your iPhone simultaneously. And the car charger delivers up to 145 watts with multiple ports and adjustable cable lengths, perfect for road trips or family travel. They're all compact, airline approved, and built to last, tested for over 25,000 retractions and 10,000 bends with 30 layers of safety protection, making UGREEN powerful, portable, and totally hassle-free. The UGREEN Nexode Retractable series is available now on Amazon and the UGREEN website, and there are exclusive discounts live right now, so make sure to check out the link in the description and upgrade your charging setup today. Look at it this way, Disney's whole brand is built around progressive values and centre-left comedy, always saying the mainstream message without ever actually saying anything meaningful. Kimmel is exactly the kind of Trump-bashing host that their core streaming audience loves. If they permanently ditched him, it would make them look weak to their base and potentially tank their brand. But his numbers on cable were terrible, and Disney has billions of dollars in deals sitting on regulators' desks, including a huge ESPN partnership with the NFL. They literally can't afford to annoy the FCC when there's that much money at stake. He doesn't really do anything anyway other than spout mainstream narratives to the public, and people are just sick of it at this point. Nobody really watches late night TV, apart from a core niche audience on Disney+. They just wanted to rescue their precious image from the public backlash. So what happened? The financial pressure just became too much to handle. Disney executives were apparently running around in emergency meetings trying to figure out how the hell they'd managed to make both sides hate them, and more importantly, how to fix it without looking like complete idiots. The Disney CEO and entertainment chief ended up calling Kimmel personally to break the news. Their public statement tried to have it both ways, saying they'd had thoughtful conversations with Jimmy and decided to bring back the show. And while the Hollywood elites went wild about this, others weren't really that happy. An executive producer of the Charlie Kirk Show wrote on X, "Disney and ABC caving and allowing Kimmel back on the air is not surprising, but it's their mistake to make. Nexode and Sinclair does not have to make the same choice." And lo and behold, they didn't. In yet another plot twist, both Nexode and Sinclair announced they would continue to boycott Kimmel even after Disney brought him back. Nexode then put out a statement saying they were sticking to their guns. "We stand by that decision pending assurance that all parties are committed to fostering an environment of respectful, constructive dialogue," which is just corporate speak for "we're keeping our options open with the FCC and we don't really care if we lose this puppet." So Disney got their brand victory and stopped the financial bleeding. The station stood their ground to obey the FCC, and everyone saved political face. Everyone except the viewers, who now live in a country where what comedy show you can watch depends on which media conglomerate owns your local station and what political message they need to lap up for the status quo. Tuesday night's show was unlike anything Kimmel had done before. He then walked onto the stage of the El Capitan Theatre to a long-standing ovation. In his 18-minute monologue, he got visibly emotional, cried, and addressed the controversy. controversy, with a pre-written script done by the studios to make sure every single person would agree with it. With his voice breaking, he even said, "It was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it." A big moment came when Kimmel directly challenged the FCC's threats. "Our government cannot be allowed to control what we do and do not say on television, and we have to stand up to it. That's not legal, that's not American, this is un-American." He acknowledged that some people felt his original comments were ill-timed or unclear, saying he understands why people were upset, but also made it clear he wasn't backing down from criticizing those in power, which does seem like a massive stretch, considering he'll never actually attack anyone with true power in America. Because if we put this all aside, what we've really witnessed wasn't about Jimmy Kimmel, Charlie Kirk, or even free speech. It was a masterclass in how power actually works in American media. Nexode, which owns ABC, is currently seeking FCC approval for a $6.2 billion merger with Tenga. If approved, this would make Nexode the largest broadcaster in American history, controlling 265 TV stations across the country. But there's a problem. Current FCC rules say no company can reach more than 39% of American TV households, and this merger would give Nexode 80%, more than double the legal limit. So Nexode needs the FCC to change the rules, and guess who decides that? Well, the FCC chairman has a big say, and many have pointed out that this essentially looks like ABC and their owners saying, "Look, we're on your side, we'll fire Kimmel, now please approve our massive deal." Also, this isn't an isolated incident, as something similar happened just months earlier with Stephen Colbert. Back in July, CBS's parent company Paramount settled Trump's lawsuit for $16 million. Trump sued over how the news broadcast 60 Minutes edited a Kamala Harris interview, though legal experts claimed it was a bogus lawsuit. The general consensus is that Paramount eventually paid up because they need FCC approval for their massive $8.4 billion merger with Skydance Media. 2 weeks later, Colbert then went on his show and absolutely teared into his bosses, calling the settlement a big fat bribe, and says that he believes Paramount only paid to get their merger approved. So what happened next? Well, less than 48 hours later, CBS announces they're cancelling The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, calling it purely a financial decision, even though Colbert was the #1 rated late night host. A month later, the FCC then approved the Paramount Skydance merger. The Writers Guild trade union called it a bribe sacrificing free speech to curry favor with the Trump administration. Democratic senators started demanding investigations into whether there were secret side deals. From their point of view, it's clearly censorship, and there's a clear chain of pressure coming from Trump through his FCC director and onto the corporations that cancelled Jimmy Kimmel's show. They see it therefore as a threat to free speech because the government is using regulatory power to manipulate the media. Of course, the main people making this argument are other late night talk show hosts and other left-wing pundits, as they've been running the phrase "we are all Jimmy Kimmel." However cringe that statement might be, it definitely isn't a good look for Trump to start cancelling comedians. But despite the threats, they aren't actually using governmental power to do this yet. They haven't had to. Instead, they just lean on corporations to do the cancelling for them. Whether Trump's use of the FCC is illegal or not is a question for the justice system, but whatever they try and throw at him though, it's unlikely to stick. And anytime he is involved with the legal system, it just adds more fuel to the fire. The reality is that Kimmel got traded away. Nexode, Disney and Sinclair all saw the upcoming multi-billion-dollar monopolizing merger as far more important than Jimmy Kimmel and the audience pushback they'll get for capitulating. If these corporate decisions are what constitutes the line between having free speech and not having free speech, then it was already over. It's still unclear if this even constitutes as a loss of free speech anyway. Plenty of people have been cancelled before, but they can still go on Twitter or broadcast their thoughts in other ways. What Kimmel has most certainly lost though is his position as a spokesperson for the liberal elite. Like other late night TV hosts, he became a mouthpiece for them, a piece on the chessboard, and now he's facing the consequences of something that began all the way back in 2016. At first, the late night TV host loved Trump. Jimmy Fallon famously touched his hair in 2016, playing off his comedic persona. Other more outwardly political and angry hosts saw him as a goldmine.
Just last week, he confirmed to the National Review that he is again considering a run in 2016.
Do it. Do it. Look at me. Do it. I will personally write you a campaign check now on behalf of this country, which does not want you to be president, but which badly wants you to run.
In many ways, they were right to be excited. Trump would give them endless content for years. Every week, they could focus on their show and the crazy antics that Trump had gotten up to. But when this free publicity actually won Trump the election, in large part thanks to the media's non-stop coverage of everything he did, things would suddenly take a sour turn. Soon enough, they all had their fake Hollywood guilty conscience. What the liberal media had thought was a joke ended up removing them from executive power. And so for the next 4 years, late night TV hosts would be used as puppets, spending their time trying to make up for their mistakes by pushing as much vitriol and anti-Trump messaging as possible. Instead of comedy, it just became so dull and boring and repetitive. Trump was the object of all of their jokes, which became more and more desperate over time. When Biden came to power for a brief period, they thought things were finally going to turn back to normal. They didn't laugh at Biden or any of the weird stuff he was doing, and they didn't even recover their lost viewers or reputation, as everyone already knew at this point that they were just puppets of media oligarchs, following a set agenda saying the exact same things on repeat. But when Trump massively won the second time, it highlighted just how impotent they had actually become. Whatever they said in their monologues, only one side was even listening, and they already agreed, because they just completely polarized their audience with this stuff. Why would half the country even watch any of these shows? All they offered was a one-sided take designed to cater to their fellow coastal elites. Years and years before, late-night hosts like Carson had strictly kept their shows mostly non-political. No one tuned into Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, James Corden for their political takes. No one wants to know what Ellen thinks about the political and economic state of the world. And anytime there were political jokes, they were always carefully controlled and limited to just a few for each show, always being fairly unique. But once they made that change and started becoming mouthpieces, the audiences shrank dramatically. Jimmy Kimmel Live, CBS's The Late Show, and The Tonight Show had all seen 70 to 80% losses in their audience since 2015. Even some of the greats like Conan would eventually leave, retiring from the stale industry. Others went down the boring end of days liberal route, and they suffered the consequences. And while the current debate has briefly made them relevant again, late night TV hosts are a dying breed. Even without Trump's pressure and Kimmel's comments, he may have well been cancelled soon anyway. These shows just don't have the same cultural power they once had. With the ad revenue from these shows reportedly declining by over half since 2018, the networks that kept them alive just don't see the point anymore. When Disney and all the executives were faced with the question of Kimmel or the merger, it was an incredibly easy decision to make from a purely profit-focused perspective. Now, despite their protests, it does look like Trump is aiming at some of the other ones like Seth Meyers, and it's probably only a matter of time until he suffers the same fate. Now these comedians have been brought down to the level everyone else is at. There isn't a massive multi-billion-dollar machine spreading their opinions anymore. And if they want to keep contributing to culture, they'll probably have to go online and completely revamp their style, and maybe for once actually be real people with authentic personalities. But it's no surprise why James Corden, Ellen, all these people have left, and the only ones that remain are just completely dull. Soon it seems like the entire industry of late night is just going to disappear entirely, and that's when their true irrelevancy will become clear. Without a team of professional writers, it seems unlikely that they can pierce through the chaotic white noise of online culture, but at least now they'll have a chance to try, all while the media landscape becomes even worse and more monopolized.